60% of our team is diverse. That means we have a cultural understanding that goes into the technology that's informing the models that we're building. People trust platforms when they're built by people who look like them.
Welcome to Sisters Inc., our podcast for and about women business owners, brought to you by Black Enterprise. I'm your host, Elisa Gums. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America. And on every episode of Sisters Inc., we sit down with one successful CEO and share how she slays the challenges of being a Black woman in business. Today's episode is all about leveraging AI for marketing. We're chatting with LaTecia Johnson, the founder and CEO of INGENIUS, an AI-powered operating system that maximizes marketing programs for creators, agencies, and brands. Welcome to Sisters Inc., LaTecia, and thanks so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Before we get into INGENIUS, I'd love to go through your professional background. You've been an executive at both Fortune 100 companies and high-growth startups, and this isn't the first venture you've founded. Can you walk us through your career journey?
Um, Thank you. I think when you put it like that, I always get shy, but my career journey, I think, has just been chasing curiosity. I started my career at Nielsen, really through the lens of just wanting to learn more about entertainment. I grew up in an era where, Billboard Top 100 was always front of the news. The box office was weekly box office insights where it was the thing. And so when I realized that I wasn't going to be an artist, because at the time, being an artist and being a creative meant you were probably going to starve, I started to look for the next logical step. And for me, it was marketing and technology. And so just got really fortunate enough to be starting my career where, um, at a time when tech and marketing and thinking outside of the box was really truly valued and was just starting. And then just continued to chase that curiosity. During my time at Nielsen, I learned so much about just data, and saw a bunch of trends that were just starting to happen. At the time that I was working there, YouTube was just starting to become a thing. Streaming on video streaming was just becoming a thing that traditional companies were starting to explore. And because I, had the experience and exposure to larger organizations through my book of business, I saw a trend and realized, like, hey, this is going to be the future. And then every decision that I made from that realization in 2012 and to now sitting before you has been built around the idea that the future was coming. We needed to be prepared for it. No one was paying attention. And I wanted to explore it.
Is that sort of where you got your passion for tech? Because almost all of the work you've done professionally has been at the intersection of culture and technology. And there are not nearly enough of us in that space. And we're seeing how being there and really getting in front of it can help us on the financial and on the ownership end. We don't have to be starving artists, as you said, anymore. So did you
Mhm.
have a passion for tech, or did it come out of like this necessity?
I think it was both. I was definitely the kid, and in my bio, there's a line that says, like, I was the kid that always took things apart to figure out how they worked. And so when I started looking back across my life, I realized that there was always a through line of me just wanting to understand how things worked. And whether that was approaching it through the lens of, I started out as a songwriter, I'm an artist, all through, middle school, high school, I was told that you're so talented, you're going to be an artist. The other part of me, the business part of me, the technology part of me, wasn't fed as much through teachers and things like that. And so it wasn't a realization to me that I actually would probably be a lot better at business and technology than I would be at music and entertainment until much later in my life. But music and business and technology were always things that I was excited about. And so when, the first dream kind of dies, when you realize, like, actually, I don't want to be an artist. I'm an introvert. I don't want to be a Beyonce on stage every day. That actually terrifies me. I started to look for, well, what are those other things that I liked? And for me, marketing and technology required me to continue to use my creative brain, my creative theory. And because I hadn't come, from those worlds, the ideas that I was able to present, I didn't know that there were boxes. And so going into tech, not knowing that there are boxes or not having the kind of understanding of how things have always been done, I was able to carve out a pretty successful career in technology because I just refused to accept the way that things had always been done.
Hmm. So, what exactly does INGENIUS do?
That's a really good question. So, Ingenious is, like you said, an operating system. I think the simplest way to explain it is that when you log onto your computer, if you're on Apple, you have iOS, and iOS runs kind of every single thing that you do from the time that you log on to your MacBook until the time that you log out of it. All of the systems run on top of it. And so that's what an operating system is. When I started looking at marketing, I realized that marketing actually doesn't have an operating system. It's either a lot of agencies that are doing the work manually, it's a lot of people trying to figure it out. And so it was a lot of creators doing spreadsheets and databases, and nobody gets into the creative space because they want to do admin work. And so I thought, you know what, we can build something a system that helps tie all of these pieces together. And so that's what Ingenious is. It's an operating system for marketing that allows creative teams and creative businesses to run and operate in the same way that a media company would.
Okay. And what led to your decision to launch it? Like, what did you see that didn't exist, or what did you think you brought to a company that only you could bring?
I think, the reason I was compelled to launch it at the time that I did is because, as you mentioned, I spent, the last 2 decades in media and tech at the intersection of culture. And no matter who I was working for, whether it was a large Fortune 100 company or even smaller, early stage, high growth startups, I realized that over the last 2 decades, I've been solving the same problem, which was around operational infrastructure. And because I was constantly solving it, it was always the same problem. People were working out of spreadsheets. And so that question of, like, well, why? And what I realized through that process was the reason that many people, even though all of these tools exist, reverted to spreadsheets, even though everyone gets annoyed with spreadsheets, is because it was simple. And most of the tools, though amazing and great and were all of these things, had never actually been built by someone who done the role, who'd been inside of the organizations, who had had the conversations with the creators, who'd had the conversations with the agencies, who understood what the brand executive needed. It was built by really brilliant technologists, and they're great and they're amazing. And I have great technologists on my team, but they'd never done the role. And so, in having that kind of understanding and that insight, I thought, well, what if we were to build something that had been built by a team of people who'd actually done the role? And that becomes kind of our first entry and our first input. And then from there, if we're able to scale it, awesome, great. If not, at least I tried. And, now we're here.
That is like a true tech mentality. She's like, we're going to try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, okay, I failed at it, but
Okay.
we'll move on.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I actually, like, it took me probably like a full year to launch the company, primarily because between the time that I had the idea and actually pitched the idea to my first investor, and they're like, "We will absolutely fund that." I said, "Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take a sabbatical. So I actually took 6 months between the idea and actually going in and started working on the platform or the idea to actually figure out like, is this actually what I want to do? Because I understood the work that would go into building a product. I understood that it was something that I would have to kind of put and pour my life into. And so I really had to figure out like, is this the path that I want to take? I could just go and be an executive at a nice company. Do I really, do I really want to do this? And so it took me a good 6 months to say, okay, now I'm ready to go and build this thing.
We might be off on a little tangent here, but I have to explore that. I interview entrepreneurs all the time. And like when you were like, well, I had this idea, I pitched it, and an investor said yes. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like my whole jaw dropped over here. Like that is I don't even know like what the right adjective for it is, but so many times, people talk about entrepreneurship and everyone knows it's hard, but people are so passionate about it. They don't say, well, wait, let me stop and rethink this before I decide to jump into it. Like, did you have any fear that like the moment would pass you by, that the investors wouldn't still be there? Like, how did you like ground yourself in saying, you know what, I can stop and think about this?
I think that's a really good question. The process for me was like this understanding that, and I'm a very spiritual person, so what God has for me is for me. And that's kind of always been my mentality and approach with everything. And so I knew because I bootstrapped a previous business, agency, Visionary Rising, that, and I built that, I'd owned it, I understood the work that was required of it. And so for me, it was not a decision of, am I going to take the money from the investors? It was really a decision of, is this in alignment with the next step that I want to take? And no matter how long it takes me to get there, because you can have the best investors, and I have some amazing investors and a great team, at the end of the day, like especially in the first 2 years, it's going to be on the founder. And there are going to be moments that, you're going to be like, hey, should I do this? And so I really wanted to make sure that in every part of my body, I felt like, yes, this is absolutely the thing that you need to do next. And so I waited really until that moment came and, had that breakthrough and was like, okay. And I called the investor the next day and said, all right, now I'm ready to work. And I've been pretty much working for 2 years straight. But yeah, that's the experience.
Yeah, as you knew you would, but you were ready for it. So
Mhm.
you launched just over a year and a half ago. Are there any success stories or campaigns you want to highlight from this first phase of Ingenius?
Yeah, I think a big milestone that we just celebrated since launching our measurement suite in February is that we've processed over 2 billion impressions. And these are cultural data points that really provide insight into not only what campaigns are working, but how they can improve. And so that's that's the thing that I'm most excited about. I think most platforms today are looking at kind of that first layer of data. And for the last decade, we've thought, hey, if I can get as many eyes as possible on the thing that I'm launching, then I can sell it. What we've learned since then is that it doesn't necessarily matter how many eyes you get. It's about getting the right eyes. And so what we really focus on, and I think our differentiator and what I'm most proud of, is that we do take those cultural details into consideration when going back to a brand and saying, did this campaign work? Did it not? We're able to give them really great insight into the audience and continue doubling down on that so that they know where to make the investments.
Yeah. And using that, Reebok has been one of your success stories.
Reebok has been one of our customers. One of their executives sits on our board. And what I've really been excited about in learning from that team is how they approach the market. I think what's been really interesting and what I like to say is we work with companies that are investing in culture. They're not. We don't work in the creator economy. We work in the culture economy. And so what's happening right now across all of the brands is they're realizing that, again, influence alone is not what's going to sell. What sells is the story. What sells is the connection. And so us being able to go to a client, work with a customer and help them to activate their influence, I think has been the really greatest experience. And utilizing our platform in the capacity that we've used it in, we're getting some really great insights. But unfortunately, I can't share any of the insights with you just yet.
Okay. We're gonna come back to you. Maybe in a year. We're gonna be like, okay, what can we share? Because around here at Black Enterprise, we're like, let's take the things that the big brands are doing and let's figure out how to help our small businesses. So
Hmm.
when it's time to trickle down, we'll be back.
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
let's get into the AI of it all. Tools that help brands with their influencer marketing is a booming market in and of itself, expecting to quadruple to almost $100 billion in the next 5 years. Why did you choose to build your tool using AI?
I think there were two things. Started my career as an analyst at Nielsen, again, almost two decades ago at this point. And what I saw in AI, because I've worked in technology for so long, what I say is like AI right now is a tsunami, right? The wave has already hit. I was working with AI and LLMs in 2017, 2016. And so the reason that I chose to build my product in using AI is because I saw a really great opportunity to inform portions of the creator economy, um, and showcase the algorithm in a way that's being built by the people that are actually impacting it. And so one of those factors is that 60% of our team is diverse. That means that we have a cultural understanding that goes into the technology that's informing the models that we're building. And so I thought that was really important, to highlight with the platform that we're building, because too often I see, and I've seen it in my work throughout my career, that the people who are actually driving culture don't benefit from its impact of it or from the commerce, that's created as a result of it. And so that was a huge proponent for me, is to say, hey, we have a couple of things that are happening right now. We have new technology that's coming to market. We have a new subset of businesses that are being created within the creator economy. We have athletes and college athletes who are taking their ownership back and understanding their leverage. And yet, none of the platforms are actually catering to these shifts and these changes through the lens of, hey, we can help you to build that leverage. We can help the brands break it down. And AI does allow us to process just a ton of information really, really quickly, and build out the models that then allow that to be insightful. So I thought it was really important, because people trust platforms when they're built by people who look like them. And I thought it was really, really important that I be present and I be at the forefront of this shift, because when people think about AI, they certainly don't think about a Black woman from Tampa, Florida. And so I wanted to shift that.
I love that. Let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts for people who are unfamiliar with the platform, of the things that AI is able to do within the Ingenious platform. Things like the creator match, the automation of the workflow, or the measurement across, not just in one social platform or one creator or one campaign.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think, we built a tool within there, Creator Select, where we do take into consideration who the creator's audience is, but we also take into consideration the overlap to the brand's audience. And so, I have a famous line where I've said, if, I'm Reebok and I'm making the investment into a creator and I realize that that creator's audience prefers Nike, yes, I could still make the investment, but it's going to be harder for me to convert them because they already prefer someone else. And so with our discovery tool, we are able to get very granular with audience insights to have the brand, understand whether or not the audience that they're seeking out, the creator's audience that they're seeking out, actually already has an affinity for their brand or not. And I think that is very insightful. And then the workflow process. My main goal when I started was to just get people out of the spreadsheet. And, we get people 80% of the way there. And so one of the brands that we onboarded last week went from identifying the creator to launching a campaign within 5 minutes. They said previously it had taken them 2 to 3 weeks to be able to do that. Um, Simultaneously, we were able to onboard a pretty significant media company who, during their biggest weekend, was able to have 30 of their brand partners simultaneously running campaigns on the platform, and with over 1,000 creators being activated across a 72-hour period. And so that just kind of shows you the scale where we're able to take something that usually used to take weeks upon weeks and actually truncate it so that it's easy and it's seamless and it can be run by really anyone.
Yeah. You work, as we mentioned, with a number of big brands, but you also offer tools for creators to help them monetize their content smarter. So, looking at the entrepreneurial aspect of it, how should entrepreneurs, whether they're part of the creator or economy or not, be using AI, especially when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, I love to say that AI is a 10xer. So whatever you are doing, really, whatever you're really good at, it's going to 10x it. If you're already a 10x marketer, it's going to 100x it. But I think thinking about creators themselves and the mindset of a creator, you get into creating because you want to create. You become an athlete because you want to play. Yes, there's an opportunity for you to generate revenue now off of your name, image, and likeness. That should be additive to the work that you're already doing. Um, and not distracting. And what has happened is that we're asking small businesses, we're asking founders, we're asking the athlete, the musician to actually become full scale marketers. I think that's the wrong way to look at the tools. And so the opportunity, I think, with AI is now that I understand these pieces that could work for me, how can I make it so that it's optimized so I can really focus on the thing that I was kind of put on this earth to do, which is either sell your business or play or make music and create. We don't want to spend our time. I love marketing. I've spent my career in it. I literally do not want to spend another minute in a spreadsheet. um, and running calculations and all that stuff. AI can do that for me. It does it pretty well, and then it helps me to optimize it so that I can spend the rest of my time doing the things that I actually love to do, which is the strategy. It is the big picture thinking. It is the idea of how to take it to that next level. And so building a tool that enhances that across each of the stakeholders was very important to me.
Yeah. We've been talking specifically about AI, but I know that in a previous role, you were at a company that used blockchain solutions for artists. Can you talk about the way that Web3 and current technologies have really disrupted media, entertainment, marketing, and therefore commerce, and why those of us who are interested in business need to be paying attention?
Man, you got the good questions. So yeah, I think there are two things that I thought of when the reason that I went into blockchain, primarily because I did spend a ton of time in music. I thought I was going to be in the music industry as an artist, and so I had a very good understanding about that. And one of the things that I loved about the two companies that I worked at that were dealing with blockchain is that they were unlocking an opportunity to just understand IP and ownership in a way that had never really been done. And so, two of the things that we were solved for, and I think is solved for through blockchain, is that if you're a producer and you have splits on an album and you have publishing rights, you're probably still waiting to get some of that money because everything is so manual. With blockchain, it allows you to actually pay out in real time immediately, without having to go through all of those additional steps. And so blockchain becomes this kind of highway into AI. I think the reason blockchain didn't work in the way that people thought that it would, is because it was missing this other piece, which is AI. And so for me, it's kind of two ends of the same spectrum. Through blockchain, I can identify the work that I own, the work that I create, the IP that's being developed in real time. And through AI, I can optimize it and maximize it so that I can spend most of my time during doing the high leverage work. And so I think the reason that people should be paying attention to it is because over the next decade, the ways in which we work will completely shift. A lot of the manual things that we do today, a lot of the data input, a lot of the data entries, a lot of the contracting, all of that is going away in some capacity or another. And I do think truly that the time will be spent in, how do I optimize my thinking? How do I optimize my strategy? What are the things that I do that no one else can do? How can I do more of that?
Yeah. We always like to end on advice. You are a huge advocate for women in tech, and you're one of a select group of Black women founders who's raised millions of dollars in VC funding. What advice can you share with other female founders in the tech space about launching, capitalizing, or scaling a business?
Expect it to take much longer than you think that it will. The playbook is different for us, and I don't think that that is a negative thing. I actually think that it's a superpower, and it's been a superpower for me. Our businesses are more successful because we have to be more creative, and it does take us a little bit longer. And so we're able to focus on the fundamentals of building a good business. And so my advice would be to just focus on those fundamentals of building a good business, and doing everything that you can to unlock that and have that faith that everything else will work out. Your network will come, your village will come, but the checks into my companies did not come from traditional routes. And so my advice would be, keep going, pay a lot of attention to Fawn Weaver, and um, and just keep going.
We stand fawn around here too.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, LaTecia, for sharing your small business success story. Everyone out there, please take a look at the company website, ingenius.studio, and that's spelled INGENIUS, no O. You can also follow them on Instagram at ingenius.studio and on LinkedIn at Get Ingenious. Check out the video channel on blackenterprise.com to find Sisters Inc. and other shows from Black Enterprise editors, writers, and experts. Be sure to subscribe to Sisters Inc. on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, or Apple Podcasts. And if you like what you hear, show us some love by leaving a 5-star review or put a sister on by spreading the word. I'm Elisa Gums with Sisters Inc. for Black Enterprise. Thank you for listening. For 5 decades, we've had your back. Sisters Inc. and Black Enterprise have everything you need to elevate your excellence.